Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome to a man coming in all the way from Miami, Florida. It is Thursday as we speak, Friday here in Melbourne. Mr. Anders Hansen, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Darren. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be here.
I'm really looking forward to this. You're the Chief Executive Officer of Real Magic LLC. You are an illusionist, but you also work with businesses, entrepreneurs around mindset, helping businesses achieve extraordinary success. And I know in this particular topic, it's a challenge for many sales leaders and salespeople to sometimes get out of their own way. So I'm sure there's lots of stuff we're going to be able to talk about, and hopefully I can also learn from your experience and your wisdom from today. Before we jump into all that, love to know a little bit about you in terms of your background, and particularly the fact that you are now, I've got to ask this, do you call yourself, are you a magician or you are an illusionist? And is there a difference?
There is a difference, and I've always referred to myself as an illusionist.
Nice.
Yeah.
So where did it start for you?
That's a great question, and it warrants a thorough answer. But first, Darren, I really appreciate everything you're doing. I love the Sales and Leadership podcast you have going on, because sales and leadership, like we talked about before the recording started, is the most important thing of all. Nothing happens until somebody sells something. So I really appreciate it. And for you listening, do me a favor, leave a 5-star review for Darren and this great podcast to make sure we get this message out into the world. It's the easiest way to reach more people, right? And I left my review yesterday, and I hope you'll do the same for those.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Listen. So you know how a lot of business owners, they want to reach that next level. They want to go to whatever it is they want to go to. Growth is important, but a lot of people feel stuck in the trenches. They work harder, nothing really happens because their mindset just doesn't work in harmony with where they're trying to go. So that's what I do. I help conscious business owners, entrepreneurs transform how they lead and grow without the hustle and the hype, so that they can and integrate what I refer to my illusion to integration framework, utilizing that so they can finally monetize their gifts and lead with clarity and purpose. And it all started in 2006 when I left my native country of Denmark, which is where the accent is from.
Yeah, but we were saying before, Anders, that when you talk to people from home, they say, geez, you sound like an American.
Yeah, exactly. And so now I'm stuck in the middle. Yeah, I haven't fully embraced my American accent, and the Danes are starting to wonder what the heck happened. So I'm sort of stuck in the middle there. Yeah, I left Denmark in 2006 with nothing but 2 suitcases and a deck of cards in my hands. And I arrived here in Miami on a visitor's visa, and I started performing magic for tips and at local bars and restaurants. And very fast I got my work visa approved. I started doing bigger shows on cruise ships, television, and that actually caused me to crash with my health. I got to a point where I was flying 8 times on average per week.
Wow.
For a number of years, and that just wasn't very sustainable. And so I crashed with my health, felt really disappointed, defeated. Is this it? I felt like I wasted an opportunity there. But what I realized in hindsight, it was just preparing me for the next level. Because when I crashed, I had to start understanding more about me. I knew I didn't get stress. I knew I somehow co-created it. It was me that did it to myself. I just didn't know I was doing it to myself. And I started studying personal development. I got my first book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And that helped me go from very little to much more in entertainment. And I started expanding my mind again and studied personal, development, spirituality, quantum physics, everything I could get my hands on to understand me better. And I became so fascinated with it and really passionate about it to a point where I decided to scratch my entire career in entertainment and just go all in on personal transformation. And I also made up my mind that if I'm going to learn from someone, it has to be the best in the world. I didn't put a name to the person. I just said the best in the world. And in 2016, my partner and I were living in Las Vegas at the time, and by just total random, it wasn't random, but acts of, serendipity, I run into Bob Proctor in the reception at Bellagio Hotel and Casino, and he was so good with energy. And I introduced myself, and he was like, "What do you do?" And I told him I was a magician, and now I want to do what you do. And he goes, "Magic, personal transformation. Haven't heard that before." He goes, "Do you have time for lunch tomorrow?" I'm like, "Let me look at my busy schedule. Yeah, I think I have lunch tomorrow. Let's look at
Yes.
lunch." So I went from, I was in debt when I met him. I was sick. I was broke. Nothing worked. But in a very short amount of time, he got me to understand something about me I never understood before. And in 7 years, I went from that to happy, healthy, turning my annual income into my monthly multiple times, actually. The business went from zero to today, we've done over $12 million. We've helped 10,000 clients in the US and Europe. And I lead a team today of people that are all committed to helping millions globally lead happier, healthier, and wealthier lives. That's the short version of the story, Darren.
Man, there's so much in that, right? There's so much in. I did want to ask you what was the originator of your fascination with magic. But before we do that,
Yeah.
I reckon there'll be people that listen to this and say, "Man," because I was in Las Vegas in December last just December just gone and doing a conference over there for a global company called Adobe with a group of phenomenal facilitators and there are so many famous people that are walking around and it's just and they're just open in the street, right?
Yeah.
Um, what were the chances of you walking into the hotel in the Bellagio, which is a phenomenal hotel? If people have never been to Vegas, you've got to go to Vegas and got to see Bellagio because it is just insane.
Yeah.
What are the chances of bumping into Bob Proctor? Because you said it was serendipitous, but
Yeah.
it was all meant to be, if you believe
That's what
that.
I choose to believe. And I asked him after, I said, "What are the odds of this?" I felt like I won the universe, the lottery of the universe. And Bob was like, "Well, it couldn't have been any different." And I said, "What do you mean it couldn't have been any different?" He said, "Think about what you had done leading up to that." And what I had done was using my affirmations, putting myself in the mind frame of working with the best in the world. I didn't just think about it, I felt it as if it was real now. Now, I was looking at an eviction notice on my door on a physical plane. I was looking at a blood test that said I was really sick, and nothing functioned in my life really. And so it was an exercise in disassociating physical results and my mind frame. And I was in that state over a period of time. I was doing my priming walks. I was working on myself. I was really diligently priming myself every single day, not to think different, but to feel different. Like
Mm.
I literally became that person. So I stood in front of the mirror 8 hours a day practicing because I was going to work with the best in the world. So I can't be mediocre. I had to, just found a speaking coach. I really, really dug in. And come New Year's 2016, my partner said, I'm going to go to work tonight because we'll be busy. He worked at Louis Vuitton at Bellagio at the time. And that was unusual for me to hear him say that because he didn't like his work. So in
Mm.
that moment, my intuition kicked in and told me to go and pick him up, but go an hour early. And so now my intuition was debating my intellect because that made no sense. And I don't like crowds. I'm an introvert by nature, which is really strange because I was in the entertainment industry for so many years. But so I decided to follow my intuition. I went there, parked the car, and now I had an hour to spare. And I walked through the lobby, and I literally ran smack into him. And I've listened to his meditations. I knew who he was. Then that little Danish boy inside of me went, "Well, I can't disturb the man. You can't just intrude." And then Wayne Gretzky was on my other shoulder saying, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." I
Yeah.
was like, I gotta introduce myself. So I did that. And I said, "Mr. Proctor, I just have to thank you for all the great work you've done." And he goes, "Who are you?" Like, I was a magician, and
Who
now
are
I want to do what
you?
you do. I was intimidated, right? Just like, "Who are you?" "Oh, well," and he goes, after I told him what I wanted to do, teach personal transformation with magic, he goes, "I'd never heard that before. Yeah, time for lunch tomorrow?" So
Amazing.
that blew me away. So we had lunch on January 1st, 2017. We became good friends. We created a program together. He invited me to speak on his stage multiple times. And that really catapulted me onto a global stage all of a sudden with our programs. And yeah, but it was not random. And nothing is random. Everything in life is governed by law, Darren,
Yeah.
whether we recognize it or not. I can violate the laws, but I can't take myself out of the equation of having to suffer the consequences of my choice. We have free will, choice of free will, but the law will seek to it that yeah, we'll reap the reward or the opposite, depending on how we think and feel and act.
And is it the case of you can only, because I know Steve Jobs used to always say you can't join the dots by looking forward, you can only join the dots by looking backwards. And
Yeah,
in if you look back on like the last 10 years and how you came to be introduced to Bob and then
yeah,
start to work with him, can you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together? So, and it might have been little decisions that you would have made that, as you said,
yeah.
made no sense going an hour early. But for some
No,
reason, you felt compelled to do that. You didn't know at the time, but now you can look back and say, that's why I need to do that. Because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be here. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be there.
100%. 100%. But I do think it's a matter of utilizing your higher mental faculties. Most of us do it unconsciously.
Mm,
Very few people develop them consciously and choose to utilize them. We have six mental tools. We have imagination, the will, reason, memory, perception, and intuition. And intuition is a perfect mental tool. Some people think it's a sixth sense. It's not a sixth sense. It's a mental faculty, and that enables us to pick up energy frequency from other people or the universe at large. And that's what Edison used when he decided, he made a decision, he made a conscious choice. I'm going to invent a device that will light up the world. He had no idea how, but he made a decision that he would. And he utilized his intuition. He went into this dark room. He called his room the land of opportunity. He went in there every night, got really quiet, and asked for guidance. And so
yeah.
we all have that inner knowing. We have that inner voice, like you were sharing with me before we started about you starting your own thing back then in the COVID days. It's like that. There's that inner knowing. Like you gotta just do
Mm,
something different.
mm,
And sometimes the intellect is debating the intuition, and learning to trust that inner voice is what I've learned to do more of. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But what I've learned is intuition never fails. We can make mistakes, but the intuition never does. And
mm,
the clearer we get on what we want, the clearer the intuition will speak to us. But if we don't have any direction, we don't know what we want, we have no goals, then it's like drifting like a ship without a rudder. Then we're going to get impulses from everywhere and all at the same time. And it's a confusing place to be. So that's really a prerequisite as I see it. It's developing those mental tools. And so far as we know, we're the only creature on the planet that have them.
mm.
All other little creatures have instinct, and we have mental tools.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like in our seminars, we have 200, 300, sometimes 500 people at a time. And I ask if anyone can stand up and do a mini seminar around the mental tools. Like we have maybe one or two people, and they've all been in my programs. They're psychiatrists, doctors, really smart people.
Yeah.
We know nothing about ourselves virtually, and that's what we're here to change.
Well, and if you think about it, most people go through life not actually truly understanding who they are. And if you
No
ask
idea.
people and you engage with people, the first thing that people tend to ask is, "Oh, hi, Anders, how are you? And what do you do?" So we always ask what you do as if to say what you do defines us, but we never really ask, well, Anders, who are you? Who are you at your core?
Exactly.
Because we sort of define ourselves by the role that we have or the people we associate with and the club we're part of and
Yeah.
what we actually do.
Oh, it's so true, Darren. It's so true. And I've gotten into the habit when people say, "Who are you?" I will say, "I'm infinite potential clothed in a human body. Who are you?" And people are like, "What?"
So, hang on, are you
It
from
leads
this
to
planet?
interesting, it leads to very interesting conversations. But you're right. You're not, when people say, well, I'm my name, that's not true. You can change it. That's not who you are. Like, I'm my body. No, we don't say my body. We say, I have a body. So you're not your body either. You're not even your thoughts. You're the consciousness behind them. That's truly who we are. And that's infinite. That's
Mm,
locked up within us. So that's a more accurate way of describing it, right? And you can make the analogy and say, how often do you celebrate the birthday of your car? And people say, that's a crazy question. Is it really? Because we celebrate the birthday of what we think is the birthday of us, because
yeah,
we think we are the body. This is
yeah,
nuts.
yeah.
That's how most people live. They think they are what's coming back from the mirror.
Yes. And so they think, and we think, when I say we, as in us, humans,
Yeah.
we think we are the role that we have. And often we are defined by the frameworks that are either placed upon us or placed
Mhm.
upon us by others, which could be a parent, a sibling, it could be a sales manager, it could be a director, it could be
Yes.
customers. And therefore we operate within those self-imposed limits or the limits that are placed upon us by others.
Absolutely. And now that goes back to self-image. It was one of the most powerful things Bob taught me, and it's part of what we teach as well, because if you overlook that, you miss a big part of the equation.
Mm,
When we arrived on planet Earth, we were just a subconscious mind and a body. The conscious faculties hadn't developed yet. So
Mm.
everything that happened around us at a very early age, between newborn and 5, 6 years of age, went straight into our DNA, basically. We were programmed through our DNA. That's why we look like our parents. But then that programming was reinforced in that early environment. And then the body grows older, but the programming, the paradigms, the mental processes stay virtually the same. And so we're running around as adults thinking that we are creating our own results, when in fact we are expressing other people's habitual thinking patterns. And some of them have been dead for hundreds of years. Like,
Yeah.
as an example, when I moved here to Miami, I started thinking, I was walking down the street. I didn't know anybody, 300 plus million people in this country, don't know anybody. Walking down the street to my apartment, and then the thought hits me, I wonder what the neighbor thinks of me here. And then I went, wait a minute, why do I think that? I don't
Yeah.
know anybody. Why would I think about what the neighbor think of me?
Yeah.
And then I had to go back to my childhood. My mom said it all the time, Anders, I wonder what the neighbor thinks. I wonder what the neighbor thinks. I was like,
Mm.
that's where it came from. As a 30-plus-year-old man, I was thinking that.
Mm.
And I was so obsessed with what people thought of me. So in the entertainment industry for years, I was always nervous going on stage. And I thought at some point it has to go away. But it
Yes.
didn't. It just became worse and worse. Sometimes I ran out and threw up in a bucket before I went back on stage. I was so nervous.
Wow.
I was so obsessed with what people thought of me.
Yeah.
And when I got invited by Bob Proctor to speak on his stage the first time, I was nervous, of course, still. But here I am doing something completely new in front of the man that I admired most in the world, 500 people in the audience, 120 countries live streaming. I was about to faint backstage. He comes up to me and he goes, "You're nervous, aren't you?" I'm like, "Mm, mhm." And he goes like, "How dare you be nervous? That is so selfish." And I'm like, "What?" If you have a dog, sometimes if it doesn't understand what you say, it sort of tilts its head.
That just-
He was like, "What?" That was me. I was like, "What is he saying? How dare I be nervous? Do I have a choice?" And he goes, "You're so selfish. You're focused on you, aren't you? How dare you?
Oh,
Focus on the recipient." God damn it, he said. Focus on the recipient. Have fun with it. Take yourself out of the equation for once and have fun with it. And then he pushed me on stage. In that moment, the nervousness just went away. And all that self-image about what they think of me went away. One perception shift. But we carry that with us through our entire lives. But once we change it, and it sounds corny, but real magic truly does start happening.
man. As you were talking there, I'm thinking of all, and even my own experiences learning to be a facilitator, learning to be a trainer, learning to be a speaker.
Yeah.
I remember in the early days learning all this, our facilitators and our mentors would thrust us in front of the group and literally tell us with no notice, right, deliver an introduction to this particular training, talk about NLP, talk about quantum physics, right? And you would literally stand up there shitting yourself thinking
Of course.
about what am I going to say.
Yeah.
But it's interesting them and they eventually did say very similar to the thing to what you've just said, that don't make it about you.
Right.
And
Right.
I never ever forgot this line, and I've used it many times since. And it was, if you are nervous, then simply think of service.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
be of service. So, and what it says is what Bob was telling you. It's not about
Yeah.
you. Go and be of service to people, right? You are simply the
100%.
messenger, and go and serve.
Yeah,
What people
100%.
think
That's a
about
beautiful
you,
quote.
irrelevant.
Such a beautiful quote, that one, though. Could you repeat it? I need to make sure I remember it.
Yeah, I said if you're nervous,
Uh-huh.
think of service.
I love it. So good. 100%.
Yeah.
But that's what it's about. It's a mindset shift. And there's a lot of those. We call them paradigms. And a paradigm is a multitude of habits that is locked up in our subjective mind that we express without any conscious thought. But you can pretty much, if you have salespeople around you, our own sales performance, it's not dictated by what we know and the market and the ups and downs. And it's dictated by our thinking, by our mindset. We had a client back in 2020. Now, we talked about 2020 earlier, so it just came to mind now.
Mm.
We had a client in 2020. His business was shut down like most. His whole industry on a global scale was shut down. He had 3 bankruptcies behind him. So you can imagine the mental programming that was taking place earlier.
Yes.
But he had been through one of our programs, and he started utilizing his higher faculties, his mental tools. And when that happened, I'll never forget, on a coaching call to me, he said, "Anders, this year will be the best year I've ever had in 25 years. And I said, "If you believe it, it will."
Mm.
And so he was the first to reopen in his industry globally. There were other businesses in his industry that completely tanked. He reopened as the first one. He wrapped up the year with the best year he's had in 25 years. He just refused to fall into the trap of what everybody else was thinking and use his perception, use his intuition, use his reasoning faculty to really come up with new ideas. And it was a beautiful process to watch. So we all have that in us. And I think for a lot of salespeople, it would be a very smart move to disconnect from past performance and just look
Mm.
at what you really want and
Mm.
then start developing the mind frame to live from that place.
So I know that Bob always used to talk about, and obviously through the people that keep continue his work, we keep doing the same thing, and that is start with what you want. And in your work, how many limitations or layers of limitations do people place upon themselves or
Yeah.
place upon others, whether that be their partners, their kids, or even their team,
Mm.
based on past performance? Because if I look at sales teams, for example,
Yeah.
sales targets always go up every single year, but the way they
Yeah.
go up, it's not a quantum leap. It's like what you did last year plus a percentage. And
Yeah.
so that's in itself programming conditioning to say, well, you've achieved that last year. And salespeople think, oh my God, how am I going to achieve this plus 10% this year when I was really struggled to achieve that last year? My God. So I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, what are some of the key limitations that people place upon themselves that do limit their ability to really open up the possibilities?
Such a good question. The only limitation we have are obviously the ones that we subjectively place on ourselves. Because our income is only relative to three things: the need for what we do, our ability to fill the need, and the difficulty there is in replacing us. And the need was there, the need is there. Now, how good are we at filling that need? That depends. And we got to really work from a higher value level. That's essential. And it's also essential that we first understand there are no limits other than the ones we impose by looking at the past, and then go through a framework of, and it's something Bob taught me, and it's something that served me so well, is the ABCs of goals. A goal is what you know you can do. That's sort of last year's performance. B goals, and now we stretch. That's where most people land, is 10% growth, 15% growth. That'll be
Mm,
great. And so we sort of bounce from A to B. Then there's no support. The family doesn't get it. We spend a
yep.
few more hours away from home, and they're like, "What are you doing?" That makes no sense. We bounce back to A, back to B, back to A. And I watched Bob once coach a group of attorneys, and he was like, "So what do you guys want?" And one of the partners was like, "Yeah, about 20% growth would be great." And Bob was like, "Well, how about 800%? And everybody gets a Tesla when we're done." And they were like, "Well, we can't do that." And he's like, "I didn't ask you if you thought you could. I just asked you if you would like to."
Yes.
And that was it. When he asked me back then, "What do you really want, Anders?" And I said, "I want to help millions of people. I want to create this event. It's going to be so extraordinary." And he goes, "But I was like, I don't know how." And he goes, "You don't need to know how. You just need to make up your mind that you want to. So what do you really want?" I said, "If I can just start off by getting $17,000 at debt out of the way, then I'll be good." And he's like, "What a dumb goal." like, it's like, all right. He was really stern. He was really direct. Like when he was coaching you, oh my gosh, sometimes he would shout.
Yeah.
And but to not in a mean way, just to get you to actually understand. And he said, "What do you really want?" And I said, "Well, then I want to turn my annual income to my monthly income." I didn't believe it. There was no way I believed it, but I believed that he believed that I could do it. I
Yes.
had never earned more than 40,000 a year, and he goes, "If you do exactly what I'm telling you, you're going to have that and more." And I started following direction for the first time in my life. I had never gotten professional coaching before.
Yeah.
Much of it was illogical, because how, I need to know how. Most salespeople, people in general, start with how. Bob starts with what. And then he totally got me, because he goes, "How do you create an illusion, Anders?" And
Yes.
nobody had asked me that in 20 years plus. And so I found myself saying to him, "Well, I obviously start with something I consider to be impossible, and then I work backwards." And he goes,
Yes.
"Ding, ding, ding, we have a winner. That's exactly what you need to do. Take your own medicine." I'm like, so I did that. I set that goal, and 11 months later, not even a year later, I had turned 40,000 a year into 750,000 in a year.
Amazing.
So it really starts with what he would call a C goal. So we have A, what we know; B, what we think we can do; C, what we really want. Huge difference. And it goes like as the latest example I have from my own life, we looked at our dream condo here in Miami with a sea view in Coconut Grove, multi-million dollar property. And I was like, when we looked at it back then, I was like, there's no way. I started my business and I knew what I would like, but I started with a price tag. When when you look at listings, you always sort of look
Yeah.
at what you think. And I'm like,
That's right.
I caught myself Bob, I remember him saying to me, you just sent me the picture of the house when you bought it. You don't need the money. You just need to make a decision.
It,
I'm like, all right. So we actually signed the purchasing agreement, not knowing how things were going to fall into place. But one of the last days before we closed, they did. And we ended up purchasing the place. And I was sitting there afterwards, yet again thinking, oh snap.
yeah.
You don't really need to know how, but you got to get emotionally involved in what it is. Because the truth is, all the resources will come to you at the right time, at the right moment, once you've committed. But most people don't make decisions about what they want. They verbalize wishes and hopes and dreams. I want to do this if all this falls into place, then I'm going to do that. But that's not deciding on anything. That's just words. So,
Yes.
so once we match the intent with our actions, everything starts to shift.
So it's you still have to do the how though. You still have to do something. So I remember when Bob was doing the secret back in the day, and he was talking about law of attraction and all that sort of stuff. And it's a very powerful law. But even he was saying after that came out that what tended to be missing from a lot of that and a lot of the marketing was the fact that you need to do some action. You need to do some stuff, right? You
Oh
just
yeah.
can't sit there and manifest a bicycle and all of a sudden the bicycle's going to turn up, right?
No,
But the law of
no.
attraction does work, but it takes you to do the work. So at some point you've got to actually make those calls, do those things, take the action
100%.
required.
But that's the key, though, and I love that you bring it up because what is misunderstood from the law of attraction and the secret is yes, you got to do the work, but first you have to become the person. First, it's an identity shift first. Then the frequency changes. Then the habits will change. The actions will change. Most people start with the habits and the actions. When you change the identity and you stay emotionally involved and really feeling grateful for the result that is here mentally because you see it, that's when your actions will change. Then now you can't sit still and not do anything because we don't have freedom to think. We don't have freedom to act. We only have freedom to think. So
Mm.
most people start with the action. But if I just accept the idea that it has to be a thought first, held with a feeling, now I take aligned action. Now I start thinking from a higher frequency.
Mm.
Maybe I put different solutions together. Maybe I sell bigger packages, higher outcomes, bigger ROIs. I think from a frequency in my case, like as an example, when I had moved into our dream home here, mentally at least, I started selling solutions that were at a completely different level before we sold at maybe $10,000 levels. Now we sold at 30, 40 grand at a time
Yeah.
because I had become a different person. And from that frequency, I delivered different services. I had
Mm.
also been the person who invested millions in my own growth. So that wasn't uncommon. And I feel many people miss that mark. We can't sell beyond who we are. So if I want to sell premium value stuff, I got to become a premium value person, right? So it
Yeah.
starts with that. That has a lot to do with it as well. But but you're so right. Like you can't just sit still and do nothing, and you won't if you're in the right frequency. In fact, you couldn't sit still in the right frequency. And I know you've had those moments, Darren, yourself, when a thought hits your mind and you get inspired. You have to act. Maybe it's an idea for the next podcast or whatever it is. You get off your chair, you do something, and you're like, "Whoa!" I sort of just sprung into action. I didn't really think too much. That was because the idea landed subjectively, without much reasoning. You
Mm.
almost hypnotized yourself, you can say.
Mm. Yeah. And it's like what you talked about before meeting Bob for the first time, right? Things happen,
Yep.
and at the time they appear very random, but
Mhm.
we all and we he always talked about the fact that you're on this high frequency and we all vibrate and everything vibrates in terms of everything vibrates and it's at a frequency just like a
Yeah.
radio station. But it may
Yep.
not be obvious at the time in terms of I'm just going down, I'm just going to pick up my partner. I'm just going into this particular town. I'm just walking into this particular building and all of a sudden you happen to see somebody that you recognize or you think
Mhm.
about somebody that you haven't spoken to for a while and then all of a sudden you see them or they call you. That
Yep.
that is not random. That happens.
It's not random, and there's actually more and more evidence that shows that energy, in quantum physics, it's called entanglement. So there's been some studies done by, I believe, the University of Mexico City, where they put two people that were in a relationship, they were subjectively entangled, as they called it. They put them each in a Faraday cage, and they put these EEG machines onto their head, so they measured brainwave activity. And one person they subjected to these flashes of light, and they could see in that person's brain certain centers of the brain would light up corresponding to the light flashes that that person saw. Well, for the other person that was in the other room that didn't have light flashes, the same areas in their brain lit up in the exact same moment, no delay. And so there's more and more evidence of that, and we're connected with everything. Time and space are illusions, to use one of my favorite terms. It's all energy. And so if you have to attract somebody from the other side of the planet to make your goal manifest on a physical plane, you will. It's an absolute law. It's the perpetual transmutation of energy. That takes over at that moment. And we just become the physical instrument to carry out that idea. The physical is just the tiniest version of us. The highest side is really the spiritual and the mental side.
Man, I could talk about this for days. It's just
Let's do another one. Let's do the
man.
3 hour one. I want to be on that maiden voyage with you when you do the 3 hour podcast.
I just got to see if Spotify can give me $100 million contract like Joe Rogan.
You're on the way. You're on the way, buddy.
So I wanted to chat to you then about and you would come across this with business owners, with entrepreneurs, with sales teams, with sales leaders,
Yeah.
the ones that continue to see if they kind of struggle, right? So how do we help somebody, or how do we help a team, I guess, not so much recreate, but maybe change the paradigm of their thinking and their self-image? Because you said it so eloquently, and I remember Jim Rohn used to always talk about this. It's about becoming the person who has the ability to carry the responsibility that comes with either $1 million a year, or a business of that size, or a position in an organization.
Yeah.
What are some practical things that people can do to adjust this? Because we are all products of our environment. We all suffer from the paradigms, and often those paradigms are created from generations before us. And we just go and do the things, and we think the tactics. And you'll probably have people say, Anders, I'm actually doing the calls, I'm doing this, but nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Why? What is wrong with
Such a
me?
good question. Such a good question. Well, in that state, they're probably sending themselves what psychiatrists would call a double binding message. Subjectively, they don't see progress. They don't feel like a success. They meet resistance. They let themselves be emotionally defined by the resistance. And yet on a conscious level, they say, I just going to push through. I know I can do this. I'm just going to one more call. I'll be all right. So subjectively, they want that way. Consciously, they want that way. It puts the body in a very frustrating vibration, and the recipient can feel that. So the very first thing that person needs to do is stop what they're doing and break the pattern. And ideally, they need to prime themselves every day, not some days, every day. I'm on, let me see here, day 2,385 in a row of doing this process. Like, I don't miss a beat, because I know it's what gives me the opportunity to create my day consciously the way I want it. If you're not in control of yourself emotionally, you're not in control of your results. And that's just the way it is. And you can meet with resistance and no's, but if you have the right attitude and if you are in the right vibration, you will be met with more and more yeses. It feels like real magic because people feel it. We communicate on 3 planes: consciously, subjectively, and physically. And if my thinking is, I'm just going to get the sale, and subjectively, it's like, I hope they buy. And physically, it doesn't work. But like we talked about before, if I get emotionally involved in the client's outcome on their behalf and I'm relaxed, everything starts falling into place. But practical things, we got to do very simple exercises every day. I do gratitude. I write out things that I'm very grateful for. And why do we write them? We write them because writing causes thinking. So not just writing on the phone, actually writing it out in hand, because that triggers mental pictures. That becomes emotions. That changes the state in the body more effectively than many other things. And when we couple what we can be grateful for now with what's on its way, Now we've anchored in a very powerful state. So, as an example, I was walking around in Las Vegas at 5 a.m. in the morning, every morning, priming myself when people were on their way back from the clubs. I was on my way out and to meet my day. And I remember one time I was standing on the sidewalk there and I was mentally so involved in working with the best in the world that I was taking a bow, like I was just from stage, I was taking a standing ovation there on the street corner. People were looking at me like, what did he take? He shouldn't have taken here. But I was so emotionally involved in that idea. And I know from that frequency came that intuitive spark that caused my partner to say, I'm going to go to work, going to pick him up, blah, blah, blah. Small things happen. And any person, whatever, regardless of what we're doing, will start experiencing more serendipitous moments like that when we remain in the right frequency. So we teach our clients that. We have different tools. Love to give you some of them around gratitude practices, goal cards. You got to have that target, and it's got to be something you really want. It can't be a needs goal, or it has to be what you really want, because salespeople of all people it's the highest paid profession in the world, and there's a reason for it. There's people that really excel because, like we talked about earlier, they take themselves out of the equation in the name of service, but they're not married to one sale. They're married to the overarching outcome of where they're heading. And that's a good non-attached energy to be in as well. So I wanted to get that in there because I feel like a lot of people are in that need energy. The need energy repels more than anything. If the seller is in the buyer energy, everything flips on its head. And that I just found that to be really effective.
It's amazing you say that because I often say to sales teams that, well, a couple of things. First thing I say to them is when you're having a conversation with a prospective customer, how long can you speak with them and have a conversation without mentioning your product?
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
say, well, hang on a second. Well, what else do I talk about, Anders, if I don't talk about my product?
That's
Well,
nuts, right?
funny
That's where
about
the
that.
most of them starts.
How about you
Yeah.
figure out whether they've got a problem they need to solve or whether they want to solve? Then you might have an opportunity to have a really good conversation. And the
Yeah.
second thing is don't be attached to the outcome. Don't
That's it.
go in there thinking I have to make this sale because I've got to close got to close my numbers by the end of the week or the end of the month
No.
because that means it's needy. And there's an energy then that comes across from the person. They just this feeling, not quite sure about this person, not quite sure about this. This is the right, and that's where objections come up.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. That's so good.
So say,
So
well, if and the attitude needs to be if it's a match between the two of us, if your problem is something you want to solve and I have a solution that's going to solve your problem, then it's just a conversation and a transaction will eventuate. But if it doesn't,
yeah, exactly. That's so good. That's so good. I've used that model for a long time, and it does work. That non-attached energy is very attractive.
it is. Um, and you mentioned something like, was it 2,300 and something days you've been doing this?
2,385.
And
Mhm.
85 days. That is incredible. And I think you've developed a habit now.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. I doubt it sometimes. The paradigm still creeps up every now and then. But that's the thing with performance. You just gotta master your day. When you master the way you get out of bed and the way you prime yourself for the day, and you do that every day, all of a sudden you mastered a week,
Mm,
then you mastered a month. And quantum leaps are recognized in the rear view mirror. They're not seen in the windshield. So
yeah.
when I get up every day and I just do the best I can with what I have in me, like my cold plunge, I don't like doing it. I've had it for 2.5 years now. I detest it some mornings, but I still do it because I remember how it feels like afterwards. So
Yes.
when I can get into the state of what the outcome will do for me, then I will do the thing I need to do in the moment.
Mm,
Albert Gray wrote this great essay called The Common Denominator of Success. And he said that successful people have just formed the habit of doing the thing that not successful people don't like to do. That's it. It's actually really simple. It's not
mm,
complicated. What is not easy is breaking the old paradigm, is
yeah.
getting up an hour earlier, doing the walk, doing the priming, getting into studying. My God, anybody that isn't studying their mind and how it works is left behind. I
Mm,
mean, per default, we got to
yeah.
study every day and work on ourselves every day. And that was Bob's one of his biggest things. And I know he told me afterwards. He says, Anders, when I recognized and realized you were studying every day, I knew I wanted to work with you. And so we created this program back then. But this is the book that I got, the first book I got on personal development. As you can tell,
Yeah.
it's pretty beat up. There's my dogs have had their little teeth in some pages here, and it. I study it often. I keep getting more out of it. And Bob was studying the same book for like 60 plus years.
Yeah.
He studied the same book every day. And people say, well, haven't you learned it by now? But there's always a new level. And you don't recognize something in the book that wasn't there before. You see sides of yourself that weren't there. And that's why it's important. So studying every day, having a priming routine that you don't deviate from, I think, because that also builds the self-image, you see.
Mm,
The
mm.
more I'm going to like me, and the more I like me, others are going to like me as a person. And that's very healthy for sales and for all other professions.
So I wanted to ask you then with that, because I'm sure there's people listening to this who are working in an organization, maybe they're working for themselves, they're not getting the results that they were hoping for. They're clear on what they want.
Yeah,
And they might be working for somebody who thinks a lot of this personal development, this mindset stuff, this manifestation is a lot of woo-woo rubbish, right? They're
right.
saying you need to get this, you need to do this, right? So how do we help people who perhaps understand they need to work on themselves, understand that this is a process, but
Yeah,
equally, I guess, coordinate that with the reality of here and now that my boss is not happy with my results and I need to
right,
deliver right. And it's almost like an environment that is creating a perception of need,
yeah,
not and a perception or a perception of abundance.
right.
So
100%.
how do we, because there'll be people listening to this and say, yeah, well, that's all well and good, but you don't understand my current circumstances. If I don't get this done by the end of the month, then I'm in a world of pain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I was there myself. But it starts with the want, and it starts with one's ability to disassociate from the environment for a bit, with the boss, with just shut it down, meaning just shut the inputs down, go inside and start developing that. We've developed this assessment because I find there's five primary reasons as to why people don't move forward. There's five mental illusions that is sort of blocking most people.
Yeah.
But the one that really is predominant, I find, is the hustle and grind one. Like, it's better results is hustle and grind, and we associate better results with that because we have an association in the subjective that says time is money. We've had
Yes.
it since we had a job, so we're still programmed to run faster, work harder, and the boss says grind away, grind away. We got to meet the numbers. They have the same paradigm. So here
Yes.
you have two ignorant people trying to change an outcome, and they don't know what they're doing. It's not good. So the one of them has to wake up and start doing something different. Sometimes it takes a brutal dose of truth serum. I mean,
Yes.
that's what got me. Bob said, "How is it going on the financial front?" I said, "It's not going because I have $50,000 in stupid debt." And he goes, "Well, how is it going on the health front?" "Well, my blood test says I'm really sick and I have to have it for a long time." "And how's it going at home?" It's like, "It's not going very well either." So he goes, "All right, so let's stop off for a moment and recognize that your life doesn't work on all these parameters. Are we in agreement?" "Yeah, we're in agreement." He said, "Do I look like somebody that needs freedom?" "No." "Do I look like somebody that needs health?" "No." "You're like going strong and 80 some at the time, and all right." So he goes, "Can we conclude, Anders, that your model of life doesn't work, but mine does? Why don't you try mine?" And I was like, okay. I was really thick-headed, I was like, I'm just gonna try more on my own, read more books. I'm just gonna watch more videos, and I know I can break through. And no, it doesn't. We gotta have humility enough sometimes to stop up and analyze results without any emotional attachment. They're just results.
Mm.
Some of them are terrible, some of them are not so bad, but they're just results. And they can always get better. So I think a person needs to stop up for a moment, analyze results, and realize that if they just started thinking differently, got some professional counsel, coaching, mentorship. I mean, before Bob, I had never worked with anybody that had greater results than my mediocre friends did. And I
Yeah.
took advice from my friends. And of course, I got served the same result year after year. I was like, this is so strange. Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? Like, really weird. But I also recognized very short time after my friendship circle had changed because I had become a different person.
Yeah.
Other people I found really interesting and they found me interesting. And today, I mean, I got to pinch myself when I look through my speed dial list on my phone. I mean, some of the names are global names in their
Mm.
various fields. And they were very different than the old friends. But I had surrendered to a new idea. And I think the word surrender is important. We don't force the idea, we don't force growth. You surrender to it
Mm,
by opening your mind up and seeking professional mentorship and coaching.
mm,
Proximity is the fastest way to a breakthrough. Being close to somebody who's done it. There's
mm.
so many out there that's learned to talk about it. And just check their results every now and then. It will tell you the truth. Results always tells the truth.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who feels stuck, find somebody who have results that you want and do exactly what they're telling you. Don't screw around with it. It's your life. Do exactly what they're telling you because they
Mm,
wouldn't tell you if they hadn't done it.
mm.
So that's the fastest path as I see it.
Nice. Because also you talk about the fact that, and I think you might have alluded to this now, just what you've just been talking about in terms of why a lot of personal development fails.
Yeah,
And is it because it's almost like just people regurgitating stuff and giving false, not so much false narratives, but they say things, but they're not being that.
100%. 100%. That's why integration is so important for me. That's why I built this overarching framework called From Illusion to Integration. We gotta get a new model integrated. And again, I use Bob as a model. I've had 5 great mentors so far, but he was certainly the one that I could see lifted to the fingertips. I mean, the guy lived his material as much as he could. He was so in tune with it and authentic, and he was so humble at the same time. If he felt somebody else had more awareness in one area, he will sit in the back of the room and take notes.
Mm,
I mean, he was so dialed into continuous growth. He was living the infinite game.
mm,
And I feel there's a lot of people out there playing the temporary game.
yeah.
I'm just going to do one more launch, 10 more sales, I can buy the house and I can do my pension. And oh my God, it's a dreadful way to live. Like I would rather, screw the whole thing up, but at least have fun along the way and live the infinite game. We're doing that right now with our live events. We've made huge investments in it, and people think I'm crazy. But I see something that no one else can see. We just had a mastermind here at my house actually the last 3 days with Cirque du Soleil's and Celine Dion's creative designer, with Madonna, Rihanna, and Jay-Z's Nelly Furtado's music producer, and a world champion of magic, and they all helped me elevate me
Yeah.
to the next level with Real Magic Live. But that's like Bob taught me that lesson.
Mm.
And just work with somebody who's actually done it, because you're right, there's so many people out there who are just talking about it, and that gets a little hollow pretty quickly.
It does. It does. Um, I, you've mentioned this thing called quantum quite a few times. I remember when I was doing my Masters of NLP, we talked a lot about quantum physics and the fact that it's really hard to understand. And in fact, quantum physicists often think, why do I even get involved in this? Because even they can't understand or explain what happens in the quantum world.
No, it's a massive mystery. I
Um,
met Fred Ellen Wolf. He was a quantum physicist, and another story. I'm not going to bore you with it, but same thing. Totally attracted him. Sitting in the front row of my show one time on a cruise ship, and we talked afterwards, and he said that reality is much like a magic show. The magic doesn't exist until the audience shows up. So reality needs an observer. We need us to observe it for things to start moving. And that doesn't mean we're, changing the trajectory of stars and galaxies and big trucks with our thoughts. But we are impacting reality with the way we think. It's a subjective world we're living in. There's no
mm,
question about it.
mm.
And so it is so fascinating that I think it goes right over the head for most people. And it's unfortunate because just with a little bit of understanding, we can truly create quantum leaps. And a quantum leap is a leap that a particle undertakes, moving from one state to another state without any conscious effort. And that's what we can do as human beings. We just haven't been taught how to do it.
Which then brings into focus the comment you made before about time and space.
Yeah,
So, does it
it's
does it actually exist?
we collapse. No, it doesn't. It's illusions. We collapse time. We do. Time is an illusion. Like in quantum physics, any decision made right now goes both ways in time simultaneously. That was
Yeah.
such a hard idea for me. I mean, for 2 years I was grappling with that thought. How the heck? So we spent 2 years coming up with an illusion for the show where we actually illustrated how that happens, right? Because it's such a mind bender. But that means all we have is this moment. If we can just
Yeah.
accept that, I think that's a good start. Because now we can go from being busy too productive. A lot of
Yes.
entrepreneur salespeople are super busy. They have all these concepts in their minds, but they're not very focused. They're not very
Mm.
productive. And so their results don't change much. I think the key here is also to develop the mental tool called the will, the ability to focus on one thing at a time. And so the whole quantum idea, all is now right here. We can take that idea in straight into productivity and business
Yeah.
growth, because if we think that busyness creates results, we're really deceiving ourselves.
And and that's where you see people getting extraordinary results and appearing to not do much work, physical work at all. But
No,
it's
no,
because your output is not directly related to what you're worth per hour. It's the results you're
exactly.
delivering and the service you're being to others, which is all
Yes.
comes from the thinking you've got. I did want to ask you in round, there's a framework that you've got that talks about the quantum physics framework for turning annual incomes into
Mm.
monthly incomes.
Yeah.
So when people hear that concept, and I've heard Bob talk about that for many, many years, why can't you turn your annual into a monthly income? And for
Hmm.
most people, I think, my God, wouldn't that be nice?
Hmm. Yeah.
Let me wish upon a star. But it's actually possible. It's actually
100%.
possible because people have done it, and the only thing stopping you is yourself. So, what are some thoughts, or what are some things that people could start to consider,
Yeah.
contemplate, in order to start moving into being that person who is going to be able to achieve that?
Such a great question, Darren. Thank you for that. The very first thing I believe we have to accept in our mindset is that it's much easier earning more money in a short period of time as it is to earn a little bit of money over a longer period of time. We just have to reverse that entirely. Most people think more income is going to take longer. No, we have to think from a different frequency. We have to think from a completely different level of service, and we have to
Mm,
disassociate our time as much as we can to the outcome. Most people they're still married to the idea that time is money. And I don't care if you're employee somewhere, if you have your own business, the concept is the same. Most people think that their income comes from the business that they're hired by. That's not true. That's their paycheck. They can set up they can earn a lot of money on the side as well. So the first thing is to accept the idea that it's much easier, less effort, less physical labor to earn much more in a shorter period of time than it is to earn a little bit in a longer period. Then a person has to actually sit down and write the goal out. And that's what we have this template for called the goal card. We got to write it out, and it has to be in the present tense. It has to
mm,
be, I'm so happy and grateful now that I am earning. It feels like a lie in the beginning. I get that. I was there myself. It didn't feel
mm.
real at all. It felt like, this is crazy. Who am I? I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. So all this stuff, it goes on, and that's fine, but when you tell yourself a lie often enough, you'll start believing in it.
Yeah,
And so you go from, this is crazy, it's not going to happen, to, if I did this and this and sold at this and this level, put these and these things together, then maybe. And one day you'll stand in the middle of it and you'll wonder what the heck happened. Like you can collapse time frames like crazy. I went from $40,000 a year to 750,000 in 11 months. Then we took it over a million. Then we did a million in a year. Then Bob said to me, if you can do a million in a year, you can do a million in a month. And I'm like, I didn't, it was hard for me to believe. I couldn't accept that. But then we started working on that again. And sure enough, we did an event one time and we generated $1 million in a month. And so you can take that and there's no end to it. But you
mm,
have to start accepting new ideas and not let the paradigm talk you out of it. You will have your own paradigms, your own mental frame to deal with, but then you'll have your environment.
yeah,
Don't share that goal with anyone, not even your spouse. Like, keep that goal on the forefront of your mind, but don't share it with them because they don't understand.
yeah,
And it's not their fault. They don't understand. They just don't. And people don't resist change if it's their choice, but they certainly resist being changed. And when we
mm,
come home and say, hey, honey, by the way, I'm going to do this goal and it's going to happen here and it's going to be great. They don't want that change. That they didn't choose that. So they will do
no,
and say whatever they have to say to get you to forget it.
yep,
And so there's that too. But you gotta just keep the card close to yourself. But I've yet to experience a partner who afterwards said, "Oh my God, honey, all that money, all that freedom, I can't deal with it. Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do with all that cash?" That doesn't happen. Funny enough, afterwards they're grateful, but they won't
yes,
understand you in the process, and you just
no,
have to accept that. And I think honestly, that is probably one of the biggest things to deal with is your partner.
Yeah.
If you're single, it's easier. Then you don't feel compelled to defend your every move in the
Mm.
process.
Yeah. And I'd like to say that the vast majority of partners would be
Mhm.
coming from a position of love and care, but it's also
Sure.
their own paradigm that they're
Yes.
thinking we want to bring a level of reality in here. So don't because we don't want to wish or desire something and then not achieve it, and then therefore there's a huge amount of disappointment versus saying, actually, why isn't that possible? Why can't we do that? Absolutely we can. Because the thing is, there's people out there doing it, so why can't we do it?
Exactly. 100%. That's and that is good frame of mind to have as well. If you see somebody else doing it, that's validation that you can. You don't know how yet, but you don't need to know how. You just need the right help and the right guidance, and then you need to just accept the idea that you can. Um, there's two references, right? Science and theology. Both teaches us we have infinite potential. I don't know how much that is, but I know it's more than I'm living today. And it sort of bothers me because I know there's more to me than that. I know I'm grateful for results we have, but I'm definitely not satisfied. I'm so impatient. Like it needs to happen yesterday.
But Anders, that's why you're on the infinite journey, my friend.
That is it. Yeah,
And it's
100%.
interesting. It's interesting. You said, "Hey, I made a decision. This is what I want, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life." I often have conversations with people, and they say, "What are you going to do when you retire?" And I say, "I've got absolutely no intention of retiring."
God,
What do you
no.
mean?
It's a dreadful idea. If you think you need to retire from what? That means you've done stuff you haven't been passionate about. I see people retire and the switch is off and they go.
Yeah,
Like, no, 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 no. You should express your infinite potential for the rest of your life. And like Bob always said, it had me laugh, and he was right. It felt a little strong when he said it, but he goes, when most people's hearts stops beating, it's a formality because they never lived.
yeah,
They never actually taken destiny into their own hands, decided on what they want, and went for it.
mm,
And we all can. And when we play that game, life becomes so magical. Like I just recognize, I got measured in my cellular health not too long ago. When I crashed with my health, I was in bad shape. I was really bad shape. Now my physical body is 44. My biological age is 35. I love what I do. I wake up every day exhilarated to get going. I feel
yeah,
younger. I feel more driven than I ever have before. I've lost everything in my life multiple times, but I don't just keep moving on. Like
yeah.
it doesn't hit me. Like
No,
it just there's always a next level. And like
always.
I said, we've created great results, but if we end up blowing up the whole farm, God forbid, at least I'll have had fun along the way.
And if nothing else, at least you can go on the strip in Florida and do some magic tricks.
At
Can
least
you
there's another cruise
imagine?
ship waiting. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Hey,
No,
Angus,
but I
this
think
is
that's important. We gotta live with passion in our hearts. It's always fun at the end of the road to tell a great story than it is to live safely within the comfort zone. No growth happens there. The
absolutely.
comfort zone is where goals go to die.
They do. They do. Hey, mate, this has been a phenomenal conversation. If there was one piece of guidance or piece of advice, words of wisdom that you'd like to
Mhm.
leave people with as we wrap up this podcast, what would that be?
That is not who you are that holds you back from anything in life. There's infinite potential within us. So it's not who we are at the core that stops us. It's all the illusions of who we think we're not. And those are the ones we're going to overcome. And once we do, it's a great ride.
That's powerful. That is powerful. My friend, really enjoy this conversation. For people who want to know more about you and what you do and certainly
Yeah,
connect with you,
yeah. Yeah.
where's the best place for them to do that?
That will be Instagram and Facebook at Real Anders Hansen. And in fact, Darren, I mentioned the illusion assessment earlier. If
Yeah.
anybody feels compelled to understand one of those five mental blocks that holds most people back and uncovering that on a personal level, they can do that assessment and we'll send them the whole kit if they just write exceptional sales on one of our posts on
Hmm.
Instagram or Facebook. We'll send them the whole thing.
Okay. Awesome. Brilliant. I'll put that in the show notes.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Mate, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And even though we were introduced through a third party, it's who would have thought? Who would have thought? It was meant to happen.
100%. And you gotta promise me that I can come back for that 3 hour episode once you start them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe I'll get you to do some magic tricks on that and we'll actually have it all on video.
Love it. I'll be so ready. Thank you for
Excellent.
having me, Darren. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, my friend. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.